right, I believe we are live. And hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Beyond Replacement, Unlocking New Potential for Your Workforce with AI. I'm really happy that you could join us, and we have an important and very timely topic to discuss today, how AI is not just replacing tasks, but helping people grow, lead, and make smarter decisions. And today, I'm especially happy to welcome our guest, Doug Shannon, someone whom I truly admire and lucky to call a friend. And Doug, he is a global thought leader. He is keynote speaker, Forbes contributor, and he has several proprietary frameworks such as GAG, Gauge, Analyze, Automate, and Adapt and ACT. And I believe that Doug will share about them a bit more today during our conversation. Doug, it's so great to have you with us today. And I know that you just flew back from Las Vegas, where you participated at Bitcoin 2025 conference. So how do you feel? How was it? Can you share with us a bit more, the more
Yeah, no, I
up-to-date
mean,
insight?
yeah, I feel pretty good. I got in like at midnight, so it's been 5 hours, and then hey, look, I'm on live. So the interesting thing about the conference is like the convergence of the two technologies is pretty fantastic. It's coming together. Bitcoin has always been something that has been highly debated. People are either saying it's fake or it's good or it's bad. Most believe in the technology; they just don't see the value in some of the aspects of it. But now that we're seeing AI needs the power consumption and Bitcoin mining needs the power consumption and the mix between those two. There's a lot of amenable things that are going to be happening with both AI and both Bitcoin, and so it's interesting and to see both communities making attempts to come together. There's not a lot of AI people there now, and that's kind of why I got pulled into it. But the fact that it's being talked about and it's being said, hey, bring that knowledge here. Let's go talk about these things, and that's really cool.
Yeah, I checked the agenda, and from what I understood, this is kind of strategical direction right now for US for economical advantages. And it was interesting to see that AI technologies, especially for mining, right now considered to be used. It's funny though that I saw on agenda Brian Jameson, who is like "Don't Die," a guy, and I tried to connect the dots. Probably wealth is like close to the health and longevity. That's why he was there, or maybe because he's one of the first company was sold to PayPal, I believe. So, did you participate at his presentation?
I don't. Yeah, I think I might have missed his, but there were so many, and it was actually interesting the way they did it because there was not really any breaks. It was like choose your own adventure kind of style, but it was there was a lot of information. There's a lot that I'm probably going to go back and look at the some of the live streams, some of the YouTubes, and be like, okay, what did I miss or what did I not be able to take out of that?
Interesting. Before we dive into our questions of today's discussion, I would like also for our audience just to share our house rules, such as, for example, all microphones for the audience will be muted during our webinar. And to ask questions, please use the chat icon that is located on the right bottom of your screen. And this webinar is being recorded and will be available later. But at the end of the webinar, we will have Q&A session. So don't lose this opportunity to ask questions via chat, and Doug will reply. And you can participate in the pop-up polls if any will be done today by our organizer. And yeah, basically that's it about house rules. So let's dive in. My first question about unlocking new potential for the workforce will be about enterprise AI. So, Doug, from your perspective, what is different in 2025? Like, either we are moving from the automation to truly intelligence and all those things such as multi agents, vibe coding, All the new stuff which is appearing like every month in the news in terms of AI, uh, does enterprise level can benefit from them? And one example that I just read a few days ago was about company Klarna. I heard that their CEO presented financial reports with AI clone, with AI digital twin, rather than appear in front of the team in person. So, what is your opinion overall about the changes that are ongoing right now in 2025?
Yeah, I think between 2000, I mean, last year and this year, right? So the big difference is agents, agentic agents, AI agents, and multi-agent systems, right? But what does that mean? And so still the big difference is even before that, it was when Gen AI came out, it said, go build your LLMs, go do these things, these large language models, go drive this, go dig for gold, figure it out. Well, then the big like 3 to 4 models out there are now like the foundational LLM models, and they're foundational because they have everything. They have all the information, and no companies that before came out and said we built our own LLM and it's amazing, they stopped building their LLM and they said, why would we keep building this when we can go just grab the foundational model and build that in, and just like find ways to work that and use APIs, use things like Azure or Google or AWS backends, and then control that you know meaningfully, especially enterprise wise. Now, the other big thing is to understand around the years difference, or the 2 years that Gen AI has really started getting mainstreamed. And the big difference there is that it is so fast. I mean, literally every month. But the reason why it's every month is it almost seems still, and it's getting faster than this, but every 6 months is 1 year of like human time. And so for every 1 year of human time, it's like 2 years of AI time, if not more. And so that's the speed. So even in things like that are fairly new as of last month, like vibe coding, just literally like 2 days ago, some new report came out saying vibe coding's done. Now we're doing like code conjuring because it's getting that much better at coding again. So it's really hard to keep up. This is why I've had to even start posting daily, just because like there's so much news and I'm ingesting so much as a human that I have to then go, okay, here's what my understandings are of this, here's what this looks like, just to provide information back. And so no one has a true roadmap, but there are definitely some roadmaps now that are finally coming together in this year that enterprise can actually take on. And one of the things I would say enterprise shouldn't be looking at this moment that a lot of people are out there talking about is like MCP. It's like those model context protocols. Those aren't ready for enterprise. And that's where we have to draw the line, is saying, me being an enterprise practitioner, what do we take into enterprise, and what do we say, well, that's startups, that's small businesses, that's medium-sized businesses, they can do these, they can take those risks, their risk appetite is more than that of enterprise. And so I think that's really the big delineation, and like understanding the timing, understanding what LLMs are now that they're foundational, understand we are moving into agents and whatnot. We could talk more about that, but it's that timeline that's massively compacted.
Right. And speaking about drawing the line, I think there are still confusion, and some enterprises they approach and asking like, can we do it with something like Replit or any other vibe coding tools without don't knowing expectations which are right now could be done with such tool, and what is still with limitations. But they are promising, definitely. I'm not sure about enterprises, but yes, last year skepticism about large language models, about Gen AI. Right now we see that enterprises started to actively build on the top of it, as you said, because foundational modern tools, you don't need to invent the wheel again. It's already there, a lot of information, and you can securely, even some kind, query this information, extract the necessary answers, results for you, and leverage this intelligence, add on top of it your enterprise intelligence, and then you will get results even faster. You don't need to invest so much time and money into building something from scratch.
Yeah, I think the quick add there is that Cursor, Manus, Replit, a lot of these things are also not quite enterprise ready. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason why is because it's the control mechanisms. How do you control it? How do you know what it's doing? How do you know what it's capturing? And definitely read the fine print. Is it first capture? Is it second point touch? Is it third point touch? Like what is it taking and taking back? And what is its understanding of that? Same thing we had to learn with uh, what was it, the other some of the other models that are coming out that like you find out 5 layers down that they are taking third party data or they're taking second party data. But then if you take that even further and you say, well, I have third party data, so I have general data of somebody, of a company, of a thing, but then you're able to get them to sign up for something, you see something else, then you have like first point touch data, you can actually pretty much figure most of the things out. And so that's where we have to be careful. And that's where enterprise have to be careful because we don't want to create a system or be too fast of an approach to jump out there and go, we're first. And then you're basically creating or delivering like intellectual surrender. And that's the issue that people need to realize. We'll talk more about like how to prevent that because we don't want to be giving out our information of our companies that are really good at doing these things, that are good at manufacturing, good at policies, good at like providing a service. If they're already good at doing that, don't give away your information if you don't have to.
Well, we speak about it on enterprise level, but the immediate ideas that come into my mind when I, for example, develop some ideas, brainstorming with LLM, with ChatGPT or with Claude, whatever, this is a question that I have like, who owns this idea at the end? Can I have any um, promises that it won't be shared with somebody else, with my competitors? No, I don't. So it becomes immediately collective intelligence. But how then I will stay unique and competitive? How I can be um, like still unique with my own intelligence, but at the same time leverage opportunities that AI provides me through large language models.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I don't know if it's an answer, but I definitely see something happening, and I see it to where the way that the future's heading, the way that things are moving, it almost seems like we all have to have some kind of social profile to say this is who I am. This is the professional profile, right? This is who I am, what I do, the things, the hobbies I like to do. Here's my voice, and here's the things that I put out there. And so, on a professional level, people can find that, and people see what that is, and that's how you maintain your slight independence or like your niche or like your area. And then when people look at that, they go, oh, if they say something comes in the news like, Karina or Doug said this thing, and it's like, but wait, that's not true. That might be fake news because if you actually look at their profiles, their social profiles, that's not what they normally would say. So is that real or not? And being authentic, showing up, not just being like a keyboard jockey where like you put out all this information. Like I show up to many things in person and talk to the same things that I'm writing about, so that I can say, hey, I'm authentic. This is what's going on. This is the person that I am. I'm not just like throwing stuff out there, right? So I think it's weird because like the proof now is has to come before the pudding versus like people used to just take you at face value. That's no longer a luxury because of the authenticity and the way that AI has been able to fake things a lot, and that's the concern.
Yes, but you can evaluate what is truth only when you know what the truth is, when you know facts, or when you can double check against the real situation. It's the same goes with news. When we read something on the internet, if I'm not in this situation, not in this country right now, how can I evaluate that this is a trusted source, trusted information? And AI, it amplifies patterns, right? So it doesn't find the truth. It doesn't know what is truth and what a lie. And those patterns always reflects our data, our narratives that we create around us. So here we need to be wise about what narratives we want to create. And by this, I would like to ask you about the skills for the future. Like I see right now that, for example, we more and more rely on AI. Sometimes we even don't switch our um, deep thinking critical thinking. We just take the information and immediately use it in our work, for our personal decisions. So, what I, as a human, in your perspective, need to develop in upcoming future to have to make right decisions, to have this truth, uh, rather than rely on some information created by somebody as a narrative who want to gain power or direct me to some false directions.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is like always understand to learn as much as you can and leverage that. People say like, definitely critical thinking, but critical thinking on all aspects. The one big thing that AI, although it does look for patterns, it doesn't look for patterns in multiple different verticals and put them all together. That's something humans still do very well. And and I think it's definitely like the usually what I talk about is like the way you want to grow, like choose like the wolf you want to feed, right? How do you want to do that? Like, do you want to feed the wolf that is a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset? Those are some of the big things, especially that I try to teach, like even my own children, is like we don't need to have a fixed mindset. We don't know everything, no matter how you are. Even if you're a teenager, you definitely don't know everything. Yet have that growth mindset of like be able to learn, be able to grow past that, grow past the different walls and things that may be in your way, the things that may, things that even if it's like social things, and this is where we have to get back into that. And social media took that away from us, and we became less social, like in person and whatnot. AI is going to then 10x, 100x that, and we see that happening now where people still aren't social, but now they're kind of they're faking and creating these like fake social constructs, and that's getting very interesting. And then you have some of the other high levels of things like different laws I like to look at. It's like laws of attraction, laws of concentration, laws of like substitution. And what those mean is like you can't, as a human, we can't hold lots of different things in our minds all at once. And if we do, we're not being very proactive or intentional with what we're doing. And so definitely focus on like the one thing you want to get done, or what is your overall goal, and then look at the laws of attraction and say like those the thoughts and energy that you're putting out, although it sounds kind of weird, but like in general the intent that you're putting out is going to be that attraction that you're either known for or looked at. And so those are like the high level ones. But again, there's like curiosity and courage or brave spaces, or to be brave. And some of the things I talk about are like brave spaces versus like safe spaces. And I think a lot of people need to move, talking about that, I think a lot of people need to move from these like safe spaces, these safe emotional spaces where you can say, oh, I'm going to seclude myself and go into the corner and just leave me alone for a little bit. That's not okay anymore. We have to kind of take that brave approach to say, yeah, what just happened sucks, but like let's talk through it. Or hey, I can work with my team, I can work with my leadership, I can work with other people like me, because we're all in the same thing together here, and really drive that forward, and be okay to be wrong or to be incorrect. And the team or the people surrounding you or the people that are working on the same project goal or seamless function can help you through that. And I think that's we need to collaborate more and seclude ourselves less.
I definitely agree on the point that we need to collaborate more. And this year, I see that more and more people started to build communities. There's kind of thinking communities around something, either AI or some hobbies, interests. And this is exact where we can um, move faster in terms of our development, because we create our own intelligence based on our experience, our culture differences, our emotions, intuition, sometimes art, science, education, uh, family background, whatever. And then when we create community, we also mix it together. And by this, we create the new narratives, the patterns that are not exist right now in AI. And by this, we can stay ahead and drive innovations, because AI can't invent something. It can support your decisions right now. I'm not saying
Yeah,
what
this
will
is right now.
be in the future. Yeah, at this point of time. So if somebody can to create new community and share knowledge, it's definitely something that help us as a human develop our own skills. Um, Yeah. So one more question about validation loop. Like, do you have any recommendations, tools on how to double check information that we receive from AI? And especially if this is something completely new. So, do you, in your personal, professional life, use any tricks, any reliable sources through which you double check the information that you receive from AI?
Yes. So, I mean, there's even like the fact that like back in the day, I have a lot of just ancillary knowledge, right? It's like, but I call it the weird uncle approach because everybody has like a weird uncle, and you're sitting at the dinner table and they say something random. You're like, oh, but they sound so good at saying that. I'm going to take them at face value, but really, they're the weird uncle. Always fact check your weird uncles, right? Because of the fact that it's never quite always 100%. And although AI, especially with deep research and O3 and some of these models that are out there that are doing some amazing things, they are really fairly accurate at this point. But and you can take it for face value, but it's definitely now we hit the point where it's better than Wikipedia. So you can actually trust it slightly more than Wikipedia. You shouldn't fully trust it. People are going to anyway because it's how humans work. We cognitive offload and we do things like this to say, well, it's doing that thinking now. I don't have to, or the GPS tells me where to go. I just trust it. Those things are there, but we need to make sure that we keep that human first approach. We keep that human in the loop. We keep that at the end of the day, who's responsible? That's going to be a human, and the reason why is because when we relinquish all we when we cognitively offload all these things and we get to a point where we don't do as much, who then becomes the boss, who then becomes the manager, who then becomes the one telling you what to do. If we want to offload all these things, then we're offloading it to AI to tell us what to do, how to do. Are we doing it fast enough? Are we doing it in its way? And this is something I've been talking a lot about online lately that no one has been talking about in the world at the moment. And it's as humans, we create things. And in the last 200 years, we've created everything that we see. Anything technology wise, it's built on top of one another. But literally in the last 200 years, it's been invented. So the last two ish lifetimes, everything technology wise, from like flight to space travel to computers, has been created. And there's way more to create. This is not the end. So some people have said, we've created everything. No, we haven't. But the point being is that we have to understand where that's going, and we have to look forward and say, is that the right move? Is that a human first move? How do we keep this involved? And if we don't, then we're not taking on our own futures. But when we do create, if you notice, like, and this is something again, like from a child's perspective, I get this even from my own children, is that like we'll like walk around and like, hey, Dad, do you see like this face and this car and this thing and this building? It has eyes and a mouth. And I'm like, it's actually really interesting. You're right. We create faces and everything because as humans, like we look at faces, we want to connect to those faces. Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they? These are all innately human things that we grow up to seeing. If a dog growls, well, it's probably going to bite you. Those are natural things, but that's how we see it. But with AI ingesting the world's information, with AI looking at the videos and understandings, and even the things that we see when some of these self-driving cars are out there, and now we're going to have self-driving bots. Those things now. But when you have Nvidia and some of these companies saying we're simulating all this information, we're doing synthetic data, and it's like data controlled and created by AI to do the simulations, it's not going to do the same thing we would do. That robot that they're creating is going to move. It's going to be very efficient. It's going to do great things, not as a human. So normally right now we're in a space where AI is mimicking humans very well. And it mimics us in so many ways because even like the biases people talk about or the ethics and whatnot, we have to remember, like, that's all our fault. We put the data out there. We are very biased creatures by nature. If my hair is messed up or if I have something on my shirt, people are like, there's something on the shirt. Or, hey, look at Doug's background. He's got stuff. He's got Legos stuff. Yeah. My kids and I, we build Legos and stuff. We have to engage with our communities. We have to engage with our children, and be present when we can, right? So then that same stuff needs to go forward. So the point being of this whole like rant is the fact that like in a world where we used to be the creators, we used to be the ones driving it, we see ourselves in the environments around us. What does that world look like when AI is the one creating, building the world? What is it world? What's its world look like compared to our world? And that's something I think people aren't ready for yet because it's not going to be the same.
So many points. So coming back to the cognitive offload, we are at risk, but what about new generation? They will grow even without the values that we built. We need to translate immediately to them. And this strong core that we have inside us, like this culture footprint that we inherited from our roots, how it will affect the new generation? This is the question. And you mentioned about the children, so they have this like genuine curiosity. They always learn from something. They open to everything. I would say that maybe they even have less biases that we develop with time. So they have this advantage to think differently, to be open, and to create something. But of course, we will see in the future how it will all pay off. And we, as a current generation, here to support and guide them, share with them our experience and knowledge that we have. So this is interesting future we are hitting all right
That'll be
now.
interesting.
And about the future that will be built by AI and we will live in it. So personally, I still believe that there is place for us still to guide it, to lead it, and tell how to do it. So innovation should remains in our hand, especially for the space, for the all that we are creating right now. But then we'll see how about other. So okay, my next question will be about coming back to enterprise point, shadow IT. So if right now employees, they started to use different AI tools, even without supervising from the IT departments, how to personally set up some safety rules to not put commercial information, private information into AI? Do you have any recommendations that you personally use to protect your personal and corporate data?
Yeah, I mean, there's shadow IT that's been around for a long time. I tend to say when we're bringing especially AI into the mix, it's more of like a shadow AI side of it, and that could be where we're going to see more of that. We're going to see more of that because enterprises are bringing in and they're saying we want all of our people to be able to use AI. We want all of our people to use, we want all of our developers to use like coding and use AI for coding and either API calls or whatnot. And then there's a whole issue with API calls because even right now we used to have issues. Everyone used to have issues with like API leakage. Now it's just API. Like here's the floodgates. Like every API is out there almost. And in your companies, when you put this information in, especially when you use some of these AI tools or you use these large language models, it's asking for these keys because it's trying to build those connections for you. But then you put it out there, and then it's out there. So it's really hard to look at that aspect. So people need to pay attention to that. API keys are secure for a reason, but if you're just going to give them out, then they're not secure. The same thing goes with information, right? So when you have enterprise and you're saying, how do we do this? And, this is why you work with like your big providers, like your Microsoft, your Google, your Amazon. They will then be that kind of intermediary between your company and the actual large language like foundational model, and that's like OpenAI, Anthropic, Google Gemini. So all these things there, that's how you want to build it out. But you want to build it out to where if you don't build it where your users, so your users like your employees, right? Your employees should be treated as your first customers. They should be treated as part of the company, but also as a customer because you want to support them. You want to build in ease of use. You want them to be a part of that journey because if you cannot create a platform, a portal, a general place where people go to do things, people will go do it other ways. And you don't want them to do it the other ways because then your data is getting out. You don't want people storing information outside of your purview because then information is getting out. Again, like you as a company may not be creating intellectual surrender because you're trying to protect yourself. Your employees might be because they're on the outsides doing different things, putting in information in different models on their phones, outside the systems. You can try to control your systems as much as possible, but you can't control the human taking that air gap and going on their phone and going, how do I say this different way? And then emailing that to themselves. That you can't stop it. On the other side is just like the fact that like what they're doing, how they're doing, and where they're storing this information, and do you have access to that? So again, like bring it in, find ways to build that in, find ways to be like one source of truth, one source of area. And the other thing is like if you do build like a portal page or a main stage or somewhere where you're staging this information, staging where your employees can go and touch this data internally, because even if you have external chats and external LLMs and external like agents that you're working with, you still got to be careful because you don't want information again going out or someone prompt injecting your stuff. Just like focus internal first, enable, embolden, and empower your employees, drive their experience, but also like don't forget to mine the data yourself because I mean, there's a reason why LLMs and these foundational models are mining the data, right? They mine the data because they learn more. They mine the data because that's how they build better models. And so they build smarter models. And especially when we move into the ontology that it's coming, that people still aren't talking about, but certain companies are saying, like, yeah, that's the way. But in general, if you're not learning more about your business, if you're not learning more about the people in your business, and people are prompting and people are working through and people are typing in and using AI inside the business and you don't know what they're saying, you're kind of like hitting yourself at the knee and saying like go run a marathon with a hurt knee. It's not going to happen. But if you have that information, you can say, wow, this area of this side of the company and that organization keeps asking these same kind of questions. That's very interesting. Maybe we should go work with them and actually find a way to solutionize that, or we should work with them to say, hey, do you need help with this? Again, like that's part of enablement. That's part of like being there for them. That's part of treating them like they're your customer because your employees are your first customer. Those are the things that people need to focus on. And that's the quick wins that I can probably give on a very quick note and a normalized note of like, this is what enterprise should be doing, because that's the first part of enablement. And then it goes into like, how do you do the cool stuff with like agents and whatnot?
Just out of the curiosity, in LinkedIn, we have this enabler. Either we can share our data with AI for training or not. The same, for example, in ChatGPT, you can turn on or turn off the storage of in the memory your threads information. From one point of view, if you won't do it, then you will have less tailored for your responses information. Also, when I see in LinkedIn this enabler, I thinking about like overall I want to contribute in the development of the models. I want them to be better. That's why I have no such private information on the internet that I would hide from it. So let's allow it to use my data. What is your personal opinion? Do you share this data? Do you store your threads? How do you use LinkedIn and GPT?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing too is to call out that yes, we get a toggle because a lot of us complained. As soon as we found out, we were saying, "Hey, why are you mining our data without our permission? That's not cool." And then we find out the European AI Information Act and stuff they have going on said they didn't get a toggle at all because they never got mined because it was against the law of the country. And so that was great. So when like the UK is like, oh hey, I don't see that toggle, it's like, oh yeah, your information is not being mined. It's like, oh, hey, why can't we do that? Because yes, we get the toggle now, and I've turned mine off because being a thought leader, being somebody that's out there speaking about things and writing about all these different aspects, and maybe turning them into other property or intellectual property that I plan on creating. I want that to be mine and not to be mined, by an LLM. And the yet at the same time, I could see that by turning it off, I don't know for sure, but like I definitely get less interaction now than I did if it was on. So, I'll just put that out there, but I don't know if it's true. It just seems that way. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but I
I would
agree
say,
that I want to be also in control of my data, or at least at some parts.
Right.
Yeah,
And even then, like as we move into these different aspects, and anybody that's out there that's on LinkedIn or any kind of social media, if you're putting things out there that you want to be yours, and like you're putting your heart and soul and whatever you have in there, putting information in there, and you want to keep that, well, just understand that like any social media group or entity or what have you could just turn it off. So make sure you have a out. Make sure you have another way. Maybe build a website with your data in it. Maybe store your data in some way so you still have it. Because if not, if you're expecting another entity, another place to store that, keep that for you, that's not maybe the best idea.
true. We spoke about human first AI adoption, but one of the kind of trends this year that some companies started to claim that they put AI first culture. What does it mean for you? What is your opinion about this AI first culture?
So my opinion is yes and no. So it depends, right? So as you work through this, companies need to take an AI first culture. Companies that are not doing AI now, humans that are not using AI now, need to take an AI first. And the reason why is because they need to get into it. They need to be brave. They need to take the risk. They need to start understanding it, because if you don't understand it, if you don't use it, you're not going to understand it. And it's kind of like the approach that I take with some of the learnings that I do, right? So it's like classically people say see one, do one, learn one, yay, and like that doesn't work. I wish it did. I wish we were that good as humans to just like see something, do it once, and then all of a sudden like we're amazing. The the way that I've learned how that works is it's see one, do one, teach one, then you learn one. And the reason why teach is in there, and some people say, "Oh, it's implied." But it's not implied. Like we need to talk about it. If you say things are implied, people aren't going to really notice it. But the reason why I teach is in there is because like when I teach other people what I've seen and done, I get their perspective, I get their insight, I get things that I didn't know. I'll say, "Hey, this is what I saw. This is what I did. What do you think?" And they go, "I saw this, this, and that." And you're like, "Wow, I didn't think that you would see it that way because I don't see it that way." That insight is how you learn, because and that's how you take like a growth mindset, right? So going back to that, that's how you understand the world around you, is when you put it out there in the world to get the world's feedback, to get the understanding, to get that social feedback, to get that understanding of like where people are coming from. Put yourself in other people's shoes, figure it out, and then hear what they have to say and be ready to listen for what they have to say, and not just be closed minded. And then you can actually then learn and be better at what you do. And so I think that aspect plays forward very well in that same narrative.
Yeah, and you mentioned this framework, so do to low that you named as a see one, do one, and then teach one, learn one. This is something that you already shared with your audience in
Yeah.
newsletter, so we can also share it after the webinar in attachment for the recording to the audience to use it. Coming to your frameworks, maybe you can share with our audience what GAG, GA stands for, and also your ACT. You also have chain of thoughts, chain of
Mhm.
custody, and chain of reasoning. So, what all of those frameworks stands for, and how people can use them?
Yeah. So I mean, the ACT model, right, is one of my go-tos, and what that really is ACT is, I usually like get your act together, right, and it's something that I use in daily life, in business life, professional life, even when I write, because ACT stands for alignment, clarity, and transparency. And the reason why that really matters is because we can all, even in companies, we can align on whatever we want to do, like OKRs and KPIs. We're aligning on it, but really there's the things get lost, because meaning can be lost in alignment, because meaning doesn't happen until you clarify what the actual alignment thing is. So you can align on a high level thing, and you can build clarity on what those things mean, and what those things mean are different to everybody. And so we can't control what people think or do, but we can definitely involve them in and say, how do you take this alignment? What does that look like? Same thing with like any kind of meeting you're looking at. You're aligning on a meeting. Hey, what time do you want to meet? Are we going to do this thing? What are we going to talk about? But it's when we get to the point of what are we talking about? What is the message? What is the main key points? that's when the clarity really happens. And when you get that, you start to see, wow, again, like I didn't know that person thought that way. I didn't know that they didn't understand when I say, key stakeholders, that they're thinking, oh, that means this. So meaning could be many different things, and especially in the world that we live in, where many people speak many different languages, the issue there is that clarity is definitely sometimes lost. Now, AI helps with clarity a lot because we can actually ask it questions, gain new insight, understand someone's culture versus another. But culture and AI is a totally other question, actually. But so alignment, clarity, and then the transparency side of that is, are you being transparent with what you aligned on and that you built clarity on? And if you are transparent and then people see the result of that, that gains trust. Because if you can't align on something, and it's the same thing like back in the day when you were a kid, your parents like, we're gonna go next month, we're gonna go to Disneyland or whatever, and then the clarity is like, hey, we're getting ready, it's getting closer, we're gonna do this. What kind of rides do you want to ride? Like engage with those people, meet them on their level, never talk down to people, just meet them at the level. Same thing with children. And then it's like, hey, the transparency is, hey, we're packing, we're going, we're going to do the thing. And then when that happens, the kids go, yay, I trust. I trust more that that person, that nuanced person that gave me the information, I can trust that information. The same thing happens with using AI. Can I trust the information I'm getting? If I fine tune my models, if I build grounding in, can I trust it more? And yes, you can. Is it better than Wikipedia? Yes, it is. If you build the right stuff. If you just ask random questions and that's all you ever do with it, and I think this is also why OpenAI built in the history, because they're trying to say like it's not so random. They're trying to build a profile, because the better
Mhm.
you understand the person asking the question, like that becomes the grounding. Like the person becomes the grounding. The person and the way that they ask questions, because we're creatures of habit, we tend to ask the same type of questions in the same type of way. Understanding that context, that nuance, is what also provides fine tuning. So that's, and so when you actually start using AI, and the reason why they say start using now and take that AI first mindset is to really drive that forward, use it, because it's going to start building that like fingerprint or that idea or that understanding of who you are, what you are, and how you perceive the world. And once it has that, it's kind of like having the, in the technical side or the professional side of enterprise, it's kind of like gaining that understanding of like RBAC, that role-based access control of like who that person is, what do they touch, what do they do, which then eventually in the future side of this, and where companies are moving to just slowly, is ontology, like the what, where, why, and the data. If you understand, somebody says dollars, dineros, pesos, whatever, crones and everything, like you're going to then see and understand where they're coming from, and that grounding, that fine tuning is going to help everyone out.
And I believe that in transparency also and reliability to the AI and explanations that it provides, also when we know about limitations, when we know about baseline, about how it was developed, designed, and on the top potential risks and how we can mitigate them, it also support us to make decision and rely on the information and trust the information that we receive. I see that we have 14 minutes, and let me check if we have any questions from our audience, because 15 minutes before the end, we promised to have our Q&A session. So maybe just a second, we will refresh. Okay, not yet. So just a reminder to our audience that you can type any questions in the chat and we will answer. Okay, I see. Probably I have the problems. Yuri, our organizer, maybe you can support us with the questions. If you see them, maybe you can speak them out loud.
Or we talk about this.
Yeah, but I have still one question from my side. The last
Sure.
one, the future of workplace. How do you envision future workplace? And when I say future, I mean 2030?
2030 is a long time. So
Mm.
the best way I can describe anybody. So most of us have thought in the, like we've had like everybody ask the question, like even to themselves, like what does it look like? When does humans and computers combine? And anything that we all thought was 30 years from now, 20 years from now, those are now like 10 years. Anything that was 10 years is like 2 years, 2 to 5 years. So things have encapsulated. Time has collapsed. And it's the same thing we're seeing from when the Wright brothers took their first flight, and then 66 years later, we're basically going to the moon. Those that's the speed, and it's much more encapsulated even than that, because like we talked about in the beginning of this, like every month there's something new, and what we're seeing there, and so that's that future. So 2030, and for 5 years, in 5 years, I think the biggest thing we're going to see, and especially coming out of the Bitcoin conference, just like a little while ago, like yesterday, yeah,
Few hours
ish, yeah, five,
ago.
6 hours. The biggest thing is I think we're going to see different ways that digital currency is going to be enabled, because of the fact that AI is going to want it, and it's going to want it because it can track things faster, better, and everything else. When we talk about ERP systems, like those systems that run all the companies and the major enterprises that track the payments and track the reconciliations and all that stuff, it's done by rounding this and doing that, and charging this to do that. And so what better way to do that than a digital currency, or a digital way to map that out, and a very secure way to map that out, and Bitcoin is that. And so I think it's inevitable. And I think that as of this conference, the biggest thing that came out with like the United States representatives coming in and saying like they're going to then make Bitcoin some of the biggest reserves, and they're going to control that because they see that future too, and they're making and passing laws around that. And the United States being one of the leading, if not the leading, in Gen AI and where things are moving right now, and moving and shaking. If the United States government is also taking that stance, other governments will take that stance. And so when that happens, that's going to be a key change, and I think people need to pay attention to that. And that's probably the most I could probably say about it. But it's gonna be good. It's gonna be interesting, and it's looking fairly great right now. A lot of the companies that were out there are saying like transactioning with Bitcoin is going to be much easier. There's even credit cards. There's like Stripe and some of these companies, and Squares, all these companies that you do now, and you tap your card or you put in your reader. Those are now going to be starting to say like, oh, you can just like literally buy Bitcoin, and then with dollars and whatnot, or any kind of fiat money, and then be able to transact that. And so when that starts happening, and that ease of use comes in, we're going to see massive adoption.
Yeah, previously 5 years seems to be like something manageable in terms of strategy, and right now we don't know what to expect in such time period. And of course, financial industry and cryptocurrencies, this is something that leading in terms of innovations. And previously, when we started to build online banking, started to use actively cards instead of cash, and right now it's also adopting quite fast AI in terms of fraud detection and all the stuff. So this is something to look for at and see how the changes are implemented and work. We have one question. So, hey Doug, can you please tell where to start if a large company wants to implement AI but doesn't have expertise or roadmap in doing this? And what are the low-hanging fruits, which I believe something that brings the most of return on investment directly from the start?
Yeah, I think that's a very common question. It's a good one because everybody's asking kind of the same thing. And normally, so we're in an interesting world, right? And majority of companies need to probably, like, the easiest way is like, or the most common question is like, do you buy, do you acquire, do you build it yourself, and or do you partner, right? And so what
Mm.
happens there is, I recommend for enterprises that they should build partnerships. They should say, because there's no way they're going to keep up to this. Say a company, say you're a company, you're like, we want to do it ourselves. The majority of the companies out there, I can't name all their names, but they've built out their LLMs, they built out their things, and they stopped, and they went a different direction. And you're never going to have enough information. You may say, let's go hire a CAIO, a chief AI officer. Great. That's the classic way of thinking. Stop thinking like that, because Even if someone said, "Hey, Doug, come be our CAIO," sure, but I don't even recommend that. I wouldn't want to do that because there's no way one person can keep so up to date to make sure that the company's secure, right? That is valid, that things are moving in the right direction. What I do recommend is I say you take a different approach. I say you take a fractional CIO approach. So you would have like maybe like a hire on like a chief digital officer or chief data officer. That's the key role. That's like a person. And then you say, okay, from there, you take fractional CIOs, and for the same price of like one that you would pay, you can probably have like three, if not two, put them in different areas of the organization and worked with that CDO person to actually drive the information forward. And having multiple viewpoints, multiple aspects, you're going to get a lot more information than you would if it was just one person. I think people need to just get out of the mindset of we need a whole, this is the C suite, this is what it looks like. Your C suite definitely needs to be enabled. Lots of companies I've talked to still tell me, hey, don't tell me or tell us, Doug, don't tell our stakeholders, don't tell our C suite, go tell our employees what needs to be done. And that's not the right direction either. So, definitely dive in, get the information, help your C suite. You have to lead this. This is not a automation thing where, back in the years we were able to do automation and we were doing grassroots approach. We did it with all the individuals. We showed the win, did the win, built the momentum and build a movement around that. Like, hey, let's go automate things. You're not going to lose your job. We don't replace FTEs. We do hours, and there's wins there because you're again enabling and bolding your community and those employees. But when AI comes in, employees automatically look to leadership like, how are we doing this? What's the path? You want to bring this in. Everybody has to bring this in. How are we doing as a company? What is our company culture? Not our individual cultures. When we're working at a company, it's the company culture. What does that look like? And how does AI work with our culture? And if leaders aren't looking at it from that aspect, and they're not saying, here's how ABC company takes this on, understands this, wants to drive with it. If there's no roadmap there, just and roadmap in general of like what direction we want to go, what's our North Star, you're not going to be going the right way because then everybody's going to go willy nilly and go grab whatever they can. And then you have a loss of control. You're not centralizing your efforts, you're scattering your efforts. And so that's some of the aspects that I think people should realize. So definitely I would say if you don't know and you are asking the question, definitely look to partnerships. But if you're looking at partnerships, find a vendor that is not going to vendor lock you. That is not going to say, we're going to take all of your information and we're going to give it to you. We're going to do all this cool stuff. But if you ever want to leave us, you don't get all your information. That's not cool. So definitely with your partnerships, look at like who they are they like, do they have integrity? Do they have value systems? Ask them. Great. If I don't like you, how do I get out? And if they say, well, you don't do that, well, then don't talk to them. But like, it's like talking to somebody. If you invite them to your house, if you can't trust them, don't allow them in your house. So like the same thing applies in business. Like make sure you can have a partner. Make sure you can have an amenable relationship because that's the partnership you want. Because they're going to grow with you, they're going to help you. They're a lot of these consultancies, if you look at like Accenture and some of these other big ones, they've already any kind of AI people that are out there, they're hiring them up, they're gobbling them up, and they're saying we have them, come work with us. And so you can do that. That's one option. You can partner, and that's an option. You can go build it yourself. I don't recommend it, but like you can check it out. It's definitely good to learn if you have a team to really do that. But still, like you're going to have your pitfalls. Like no one knows everything, and no one's able to see everything. And then if you can diversify that, or you go like, again, like take that fractional approach, and there's companies that'll do that for you. You can actually just hire on companies that'll say, hey, we bring on fractional CIOs. There's groups out there that I know of that are working like they have like 10 experts, and these experts work in a fractional way, and those are some wins that can happen. So there's lots of opportunities out there. Reach out to leaders. Like you can reach out to me, you reach out to, there's so many other thought leaders out there that are actually driving these things, that can teach, that can engage or upskill workforces and teams. And so I'd say just reach out and talk to people.
Great advices. And speaking about the vendor evaluation and this paradox of choice, that there are so many tools right now and what to use and how to use, I would recommend not to just look at the shiny tools and read marketing materials, but also always keep in mind, why are you doing this? What is the purpose? What business problem we are trying to solve? What um, objectives we want to achieve, and from it go and look for some tools that fulfill those requirements rather than just like follow some advertisements and click on something that promising you some shiny stuff which probably even not fit your requirements. Same goes, I'm a bit right now skeptical about those posts that like, hey, here is 1000 plus different use cases. Yes, I also can generate with AI a lot of different use cases, but the question is, do we need those use cases? Maybe we should stick to the outcome based development. We need to find like what we want at the end, what value those solutions need to bring us. Maybe we need somehow evaluate them in advance in terms of our business goals, in terms of our technical feasibility. Maybe before the start, we need to do the proper discovery. And also, do we understand clearly what data we have? How we right now maintain this data? Like sometimes companies has a lot of Excel files, but the data is not up to date, it's not clean. And if you will put this data into AI, you will get the wrong results. So start with overview, like what you have right now in terms of technical landscape, in terms of understanding of AI and what it can do, in terms of discovery your own processes, like how is this works? Do we capture it somewhere? Do we have this process schema which can explain everybody and everybody will be aligned? Coming back to your framework about like what others in different departments do. If we don't understand it, how we can apply on the top of it AI. So one more small questions and we will wrap up because we are running out of time. So the question is about if you want to become an expert in developing AI, making AI tools, is it always required coding skills? Or because there are some no-code, low-code platforms, vibe coding. What is your opinion? Do you think people like a business user can start straightforward and create, design something with such tools and effectively use it in production?
Yeah, I think overall the understanding of code, so there's been happening for a long time, right? So you have developers, and some developers are like really great at Python, some are really great at C, some are really great at even building like VB and Unix and some of these other things in the back end, and or even COBOL, right? We still have COBOL. Why do we have COBOL? Either way, so understanding the logic, so understanding programming logic will take you far. Understanding AI programming logic will take you far. And I think the average person needs to just understand how it works, understand what things mean, what's out there, and again, like getting your feet wet, trying things out. In the future, right now, like people say, oh, go. People are still saying, go learn how to prompt. It doesn't matter. Like that's already been bypassed. And the reason why is because we have like chain of thought, and chain of thought helps you. The LLM is actually helping you to understand like what you're asking, and maybe you're asking the wrong question. And you even see now that sometimes even with like ChatGPT, some of these other models, it's like you like say, I want to do this, I want to talk about this thing, I want to do this other thing. You're like, you're putting it all together, and it's like, are you sure you want to do it like this? And it's like, oh, you're trying to validate the question I'm asking. Therefore, no matter how bad your prompt, how bad your input is, it's trying to help you fulfill that. And that's where, we didn't talk about it in the call, but like, the chain of thought, then there's like chain of custody, which you see a lot more perplexity. Perplexity does really good with chain of custody, of saying like what information grabbed, where did it come from? Here's the link so you can go verify it yourself. And that's where you do the verification. And then what I think is the last chain we need is chain of reasoning, which is between both of those chains of what the output is. How did the LLM and how did the AI get to this point? Are we sure? Because the thing that one of the big takeaways I think people need to understand is that whatever the output is, that's not the only output. There's 1,000 other outputs it could have gave you, and 100 of those were actually really good. That if you actually did the research yourself, you would have found maybe a different answer that would have related more to you than what the output did. It may sound right because it's meant to sound right. It's meant to be like spot on, and it is dialing it in, and it may be the best answer, but is it? And you're never going to know that unless you look at it yourself. And so understand that we are being gamified to an extent. we've been gamified by algorithms previously in social media. We know this, it's factual. AI is also gamifying certain aspects of our lives, and so make sure we're looking at that and make sure you're understanding that. With regards to uh, becoming an expert in AI tools and making AI tools, like not in the LLM side, but definitely agents are now looking. So a lot of people are building tooling there because agents are the new scaffolding that enterprises need to drive AI adoption, and that's probably a whole other conversation that we don't have time for.
Yes, but unfortunately, time is running out, and we need to wrap up our insightful and meaningful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing with us and our audience this information, your thoughts on AI, on future of workforce, on what we need to upskill and learn, and what as a human we need to develop in upcoming future and today. And this series of webinar with thoughtful leaders is specifically that we said today, like having this community where people can exchange different knowledge, and with thoughtful leaders who work a lot in developing their own opinions, frameworks, practicing it, and proving it with different situation enterprises. We as a enterprise leaders can develop faster our strategies and use wisely AI. So, Doug, thank you so much for being with us today, and have
Yeah,
a wonderful day. Hopefully, you will be energized after your trips, but you have a lot of
yeah.
insights from the conference. So, enjoy your day and happy
Yep.
weekends.
Thanks, Grant. Thanks, everybody.